I spent a year working 12-hour days in 90-degree heat overseas, dreaming about the silence of my Arizona hilltop. When I finally got home, that silence was gone, buried under 3 mansions and an HOA sign nailed into my dirt. They thought I'd vanished. They forgot who they were stealing from. You learn something working in a place like northern Qatar. The heat strips you down to who you really are. It doesn't care what you drive, what you earn, or what name's printed on your badge. It just keeps coming, day after day, like a hammer made of sunlight. 12 hours a day, sometimes 14. And if you can stand that, you stop being afraid of small things. Paperwork, authority, noise. You start to crave the quiet. For me, that quiet had a name. 6 acres of high desert outside Cotton Hollow, Arizona. My land, my hilltop. That place had a kind of silence that hummed, like an old tune you could feel more than hear. I'd built my porch to face the canyon, so every evening the light fell just right, gold through the mesquite, soft against the ridgeline. When I signed that deed 15 years ago, I made myself a promise. No HOA, no neighbors breathing down my neck, no one telling me how to live. Just sky, dust, and the hum of the wind. By the time my overseas contract ended, I'd been counting the days like a prisoner waiting on parole. When the flight touched down in Phoenix, I rented a battered Chevy Silverado with one headlight dimmer than the other and headed north, windows down, air dry as chalk. The desert sun hit my arm through the glass, and for the first time in months, I didn't mind the heat. That's my kind of heat, the kind that doesn't own you. The drive took 3 hours, same as always, highway, then blacktop, then gravel. After that, it's just dirt. The kind of dirt that sticks to your boots and stays there. Every turn felt like muscle memory. I knew each bend, each mesquite tree leaning into the wind, each worn fence post that still stood guard like a soldier from another time. I didn't have a reason to expect anything strange. Before I'd left, I'd done everything by the book, filed travel notices with the county, hired a monitoring service, shut off the power, locked the well, even taped a laminated sign inside the window. Temporary absence, not abandonment. I'd watched too many people lose what they built because they trusted systems to protect them. I wasn't about to be one of them. So when I rounded the last bend and saw the ridge rising up ahead, my chest tightened the way it always did, half pride, half relief. The hill looked the same, bleached gold under the sun. For a second, I could almost hear the creak of my porch swing, the whisper of dust in the wind. Then I saw it, a flash of wood. A shape that didn't belong. At first I thought it was a mirage, the kind you get after driving too long in heat shimmer, but it wasn't. A fence, a new one, tall, fresh-cut cedar, running where my old split-rail fence had been. And behind it, rooftops, 3 of them, fresh stucco, pastel paint, tile roofs gleaming like they had been imported from Scottsdale. I eased the truck to a stop. The engine idled, slow and steady, while my mind tried to make sense of the sight. There, beyond that fence, stood my house, small, square, built with my own hands. Except now, it looked like a ghost. A forgotten relic surrounded by strangers. I stepped out of the truck. The wind hit me, carrying the faint hum of air conditioning units and the soft clink of wine glasses. There were people sitting on porches, on my land, sipping drinks, talking, laughing, as if they had always lived there, as if they belonged. Then my eyes caught the sign bolted to the new gate. Stone Ridge Circle, HOA, private access, members only. For a moment, I didn't breathe. Then I did the only thing I could. I started walking toward it, boots sinking into the dust I'd known all my life, a low burn rising in my chest. I wasn't confused anymore, not really. Shock had a short half-life in me. This wasn't confusion, this was insult. Whatever waited past that gate, whoever thought they could build walls on my soil, they'd just declared war. And they didn't even know it yet. I don't remember turning off the engine. One second, I was sitting there gripping the wheel. The next, I was standing beside the truck, the heat crawling up through my boots. The sound of my tires crunching the gravel faded behind me, replaced by something I hadn't heard on this land in 15 years. Voices. Laughter. The kind that didn't belong here. A pair of lawn chairs sat on a brand new porch 20 yards inside the fence. 2 people, mid-40s, wine glasses in hand, looked up when they saw me. The man raised his brows like I was the stranger. The woman gave a polite little wave, that suburban kind of wave that says you're trespassing, but I'll pretend to be nice about it. The sign at the gate was real enough. Stone Ridge Circle, Hoa. Members only. I ran my fingers along the metal, still warm from the welder's torch. The bolts were new. The padlock gleamed. Then she appeared. Out of one of the pastel houses came a woman in a beige linen suit, clipboard in one hand, phone in the other. Her walk was brisk, measured, heels clicking against the newly paved walkway like a metronome, hair curled just right, the color of bottled confidence. Sunglasses that probably cost more than my truck. And that smile, thin, professional, cold enough to keep milk fresh. She stopped a few feet from the gate and tilted her head, assessing me like I was a misplaced delivery. "Can I help you?" she asked. Her tone was perfectly calm, perfectly condescending. "Yeah," I said. "You can tell me why there are 3 houses on my land." Her lips didn't even twitch. "I'm sorry, your land?" I nodded toward the ridge. "That's my house up there. Been mine for 15 years, bought and paid for. You can check the county records if you want." She adjusted her sunglasses, as if blocking out my existence. "Oh, you must be looking for the HOA office. It's in the south unit, just past the stone walkway." "No," I said, steady. "I'm not looking for an office. I'm looking for an explanation." Something flickered in her eyes, not surprise, annoyance, like a teacher dealing with a slow student. "Well," she said, voice sugar-coated. "Mr. Martin, Riley Martin." She tapped her clipboard, flipped a laminated page. "Well, Mr. Martin, this property was classified as transitional use after more than 12 months of non-occupancy. No utilities, no mail service, no response to notices. Under county code, it was listed as available for provisional development." I stared at her, words flat in my mouth. "That's impossible. I never surrendered it. I filed documentation before I left the country." Her tone didn't change. "I'm afraid the process moved forward in your absence. The Stone Ridge Circle Homeowners Association applied for emergency housing authorization under the Transitional Availability Statute. Everything was approved, all by the book." "By whose book?" I asked. "By the county's," she said, smiling again, tighter this time. "You're free to review the paperwork through our online portal, but I should warn you, our board's invested heavily. Any reversal could have significant legal consequences." That word consequences hit like a spark on dry kindling. She thought she was warning me. She didn't realize she was lighting the fuse. "Let me get this straight," I said slowly. "You built over my fence line, hooked into my utilities, and locked my gate, and you think I'm the problem?" She clasped her hands neatly over the clipboard. "Mr. Martin, I understand this is upsetting, but you have to see it from the community's perspective. The land was vacant. We've improved it. We've added value." "Value," I repeated. "To who?" Her smile sharpened. "To everyone who matters." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The desert wind moved between us, dry and silent. A hawk circled above the ridge, my ridge, casting its shadow across the fence line. Then she extended her hand. Perfect nails, perfect arrogance. "Karen Holdridge," she said, "president of the Stone Ridge Circle HOA. Welcome to the neighborhood, neighbor." I didn't take her hand. Instead, I turned back toward my truck, each step slow, deliberate. My boots crunched the dirt of my own driveway, now polished stone, like a reminder of what had been stolen. When I reached the door, I looked once more at the sign on the gate. Private access, members only. Under my breath, I said it out loud. Not anymore. Then I got in, started the engine, and drove the perimeter road that used to be my fence line. The land was still mine under the skin of all their fresh paint and asphalt. I could feel it. Every dip, every slope. They might have paved over the surface, but underneath it still breathed me. And I knew, before I hit the main road, before the dust even settled behind me, this wasn't confusion. This wasn't misunderstanding. This was a takeover, and I'd just declared war right back. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the kitchen table of a cheap roadside motel, a cup of gas station coffee cooling beside a pile of papers that used to mean peace of mind. Deed, purchase record, notarized service agreements. Every document was clean, airtight, legitimate. The county seal, the title number, the plat map, mine. No loopholes, no gray areas. And yet, someone had taken my silence and turned it into an opening. By sunrise, I was parked in front of the county records office. The building looked the same as it had a decade ago. Sun-faded brick, an American flag hanging half-tangled in the morning breeze. Inside, the air smelled like old toner and slow air conditioning. Ceiling fans spun lazily overhead, moving more dust than air. A long counter divided the lobby, guarded by a young man in a faded county polo, slouched behind a computer with a Vote Local sticker on it. I set my file down. Morning, I need to pull property files under the name Riley Martin, parcel 86014, registered in 2009. He typed something, clicked, frowned. Yeah, we've got a file, 2, actually. 2? I asked. How can there be 2? He turned the monitor toward me. One's your original ownership record. The other's a transitional claim filed about 9 months ago. That word again, transitional. My stomach went cold. Filed by who? He scrolled, squinting at the screen. Looks like Stone Ridge Circle Homeowners Association, signed by a Karen Holdridge. I leaned in closer. On the screen was a scanned form. Statement of intent to vacate and forfeit. Date stamped 11 months ago. Under signature of owner, my name, Riley Martin, scribbled in a handwriting that wasn't mine. My jaw locked so hard it ached. That's not my signature. The clerk shrugged, palms up. It went through. There's also a digital affidavit referencing discontinuation of property upkeep and mail suspension as supporting evidence. That's how they justified the transfer to provisional use. Transfer, I repeated slowly, not ownership? He nodded. Technically no, but once they start construction, provisional rights escalate under development law. He said it like reading a weather report, like it was nothing. I stared at the screen, and then I saw it. The second signature. Co-signer, Gerald Martin, my father's name, the man who died 7 years ago. My throat closed. Who signed that? The clerk looked confused. Says here, notarized by Leonard Pierce. I forced the words out. He's been retired for 5 years. The clerk blinked. Well, that's odd. Yeah, I said quietly. Odd. He looked uneasy now, maybe sensing something beyond paperwork. Look, I just pull records, he said, but that's pretty messed up. Print me copies of everything, I said. Every page tied to that transfer. Include timestamps, signature data, metadata, if you've got it. Sure thing, he said, clicking through menus. The printer behind him started to whine and spit out sheets of thin paper, one after another. Each page sounded like a nail being driven into something I used to trust. When he handed me the stack, it was heavier than it should have been. Fraud has a weight to it. You can feel it in your hands. I walked out into the sunlight, the papers tucked under my arm, and for a moment just stood there on the courthouse steps. The heat hit me full in the face, but it didn't burn. It steadied me. My hand shook once, just once, and then stopped. Not fear, not weakness, just the body recognizing what the mind already knew. This was war by paperwork, and I'd spent a lifetime learning how to fight in worse places. I looked down at my name forged in black ink, at my father's ghost dragged into the mess. And right then, something in me settled. I wasn't going to shout. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to document everything. By the time I reached the truck, I already had the next stop in mind, the county planning office. Because if this went through, someone had signed off on it. Someone had looked at those forgeries and said, approved, and I wanted to see their face when I asked them why. The planning and zoning department sat 2 blocks down from the records office, tucked behind a sun-bleached row of palm trees and a flag that had seen too many summers. I'd been in that building once before, years back, when I first applied for a utility trench permit. Back then, it smelled like paper and floor wax and small-town competence. That smell was gone now. Inside, the air felt still. A receptionist looked up from her desk, her nameplate reading Marla. She smiled the way people do when they already plan to say no. Morning, I said, setting my folder down. I need to review zoning permits issued for parcel 86014, filed under my name or any provisional claimant. Her hands paused above the keyboard. Parcel number again? I repeated it. She typed. Her screen flickered blue, then green, then her eyebrows lifted just slightly. Oh, she said. That parcel was part of a provisional authorization last year. Temporary administrative housing, correct? That's what they're calling it, I said. I want to see the file. She hesitated, then picked up the phone. "You'll want to talk to Supervisor Sharp. He approved that one." "Perfect," I said. "Is he in?" She looked uncomfortable. "He's currently on leave." "How long's he been out?" "About 3 weeks." I waited. "Any chance of speaking to whoever signed off for him?" Her fingers fluttered nervously. "We can't discuss personnel status, sir." I leaned in slightly, not aggressive, just steady. "I'm not asking about personnel. I'm asking how 3 homes got built on private land without a single public notice. That's a legal question, not a personnel one." Her eyes darted to the hallway behind her, then back. "Would you like me to request the file digitally?" "I'd prefer it printed," I said. "All of it." She sighed, clicked through menus, and the printer started humming. The sound filled the lobby, page after page sliding into the tray. When she handed me the stack, I could already see what I'd come for. Sharp's name, his signature, and a stamp that didn't belong. Every permit, every authorization, every emergency housing exemption carried his approval. But the dates didn't make sense. The first permit was stamped February 14th. The construction photos I'd seen, on drone footage later, would show bulldozers breaking ground 3 months before that, meaning the permits were backdated to cover what was already built. "Marla," I said quietly, "do you usually issue construction approval before public notice?" Her mouth opened, then closed. "All proper steps were followed," she recited. "Sure they were," I said, gathering the pages. "In someone's version of proper." I stepped outside into the afternoon glare, the folder heavy in my hands. The sun hit hard, but my thoughts were colder than the tile floors inside. If the permits were fake, Sharp's leave wasn't a vacation. It was damage control. Someone higher up had realized the paper trail wouldn't hold. I drove straight to the property lines, needed to see it with my own eyes again. The closer I got, the stranger it felt. New asphalt roads had been poured where dirt paths used to be. The electrical poles I'd installed myself years ago, painted over, numbered, folded into a grid that wasn't mine. Even the soil looked changed, graded, flattened, engineered for someone else's vision. They hadn't just built houses, they'd rewritten geography. At the edge of the new development, I stopped at what used to be my mailbox. It was gone, replaced by a sleek metal unit with HOA branding. I stared at it, jaw tightening. A delivery van pulled up beside me, the driver rolling down his window. "You waiting for mail?" he asked. "Not anymore," I said. He laughed like it was a joke. "Well, this box goes to Stone Ridge Management Office now, downtown Phoenix, forwarded mail and all." I watched him drive off, dust trailing behind. That meant every letter, every legal notice, every certified warning had gone straight to them first. They hadn't just stolen my land. They'd intercepted my voice. I sat there for a long minute, the sun crawling higher, the pages of Sharp's approvals fluttering in the passenger seat. A forgery could be fixed, but this was infiltration. They had connections, they had signatures, they had infrastructure, and they'd used all of it to make me disappear, on paper. The thought settled deep, like a nail driven into oak. This wasn't an accident, it was a plan. And whoever built it was smart enough to think I'd never come back. Morning came, gray and heavy, the kind of Arizona morning that promises heat, but gives you a short mercy first. I sat outside the motel room, coffee steaming in a paper cup, folder of documents on the metal table beside me. The world was still half asleep. A truck passed on the highway, its echo fading into the hills. I'd spent the night sorting through everything. Every forged line, every fake signature, every permit that shouldn't exist. The pile on the table wasn't just paper. It was a confession written in someone else's handwriting. I looked at the mess and said out loud, to no one in particular, "I've fought worse battles, just never on paper."